They are so good at planning that they don't even have invented cookies. First of all, one of the biggest reasons for many of us. Under the Qun, sex is free. In the sense that you can go to your doctor, to Mashran, and then just have sex prescribed. Like you can have sex with your doctor, if that's what she deems your need. It's just that, sex on demand. There are a lot of people who will be converted just for that. They have selective breeding in the Qun in order to breed the perfect warrior or farmer. So you can actually be told, just straight out of nowhere, hey, go have sex with that person. It's for the Qun. When you go to your Temashran to have sex, you can only have it with someone of your own race. So if you're totally into Qunari, well, if you're a human, then no. That's not going to happen. Then they will find a human convert who will then be told, hey, there's a need here. Go supply. And you can't say no, cause that's the Qun for you. Personal freedom like that, no. Also under the Qun, you can have romantic relationships, but it's not normal for you to have sex with the person that you love. I guess they can have the desire, but love and sex is just not something they typically mix in their thoughts. They just don't see it that way. Also, the Ben Hashrath will punish you in case you try to have sex with someone you love. You can only have sex with the people they want you to. Many wouldn't think of it, but the Qun can actually be a nice place to live under. In life there are many people who have jobs they don't feel are meaningful. That what they do doesn't matter and someone else could just jump in and replace them, and it wouldn't make a real difference. All they do is just be there and do senseless shit. Well, under the Qun, you are a master of your craft. You will be taught to master what you do. So what you actually do is of importance. And if you do not think so, they have the Ben Hashrath, who among other things are re-educators, that if you do not believe what you're doing is right enough, they will torture you, kill you, or some other things in order to make sure that you can be totally indoctrinated into believing that what you do is the most important thing of your life. Well, at least just important enough to not really complain about it. And all of this re-education is just part of the free healthcare and mental therapy that's also free within the Qun. Because apart from actually giving you help with mental stuff, they can also give you free healthcare in form of Temashrans, who are basically these doctors. If there's an unwanted pregnancy, don't worry. Under the Qun, all children are raised the exact same and nobody knows who their parents are. Because that's just not allowed. If someone is in a couple, they will never have sex with each other, and if they do, it's punished. Because all children under the Qun are the same. Nobody is more worth than others. All are equal. And therefore it doesn't really matter if you know who your parents are, because your heritage does not matter. Everyone are your brothers and sisters. Number 3. Order. In the world of Thedas, where everybody dies like flies or in other painful ways get killed, in the Qunari society there's actually a lot of peace and order. It's also why it's very attractive for slaves or other poor people, because under the Qun their lives will be improved. Because they have nothing, and under the Qun they have something. Also, the people under the Qun is in one of the most technologically advanced society. It's actually the most technologically advanced civilization in all of Thedas, apart from the dwarves. This is partly because under the Qun it's very important that you are a master of your craft, so that you always seek to become better and better, and that's just translates into plain more efficiency. It goes to such a big extent that not being good enough at your craft is seen as a very huge shame. That's also why when Qunari meets other races, if the Qunari does not speak enough common in order to be understood, they prefer to just be silent at all, because if they cannot even speak to a passable degree or to an excellent degree, then it just shows that they have been lazy, that they aren't good enough. And speaking of high technological advancement, they are so good at planning that they don't even have invented cookies. Cookies are typically invented when you have a lot of leftovers from all the things that you do, and then you just smash it together and eventually someone creates a cookie. Well, the Qunari are so good at planning that they just don't have leftovers at all. So in any way they can know the cookie is from outsiders who are not as efficient. They actually have advanced medicine and sanitation because of their technological advancement. The reason why they run around in war paint is just because it's a mixture that hardens their skin so much it's like metal. So to them, they're just walking around in heavy armor if they suddenly also put metal plates on them. Of course, in all of this, there are people who start to think of themselves rather than the entire group, so that egoism becomes a kind of a thing. And when that happens, the Ben Hasrat and the secret police department kills those people who try to become egoistic, because they should never think of themselves higher than this society. Or they will just be tortured or killed. Honor. You wouldn't think of it, but the savages of the Qun actually have a sense of honor. For example, they believe that a debt should always be paid, which Hawk in Dragon Age 2 partially finds out when a dwarf tries to cheat the Arrow Shark to giving him the explosive power that they have. But it doesn't go well and the dwarf doesn't want to pay Hawk. So instead, the Arrow Shark then intimidates the dwarf to pay Hawk, despite the Arrow Shark doesn't really care at all. And then there's the Talvashot, the Qunari outside of the Qun. So I guess they're just called Ari, because they're not part of the Qun. And even they get a burial. Or more specifically under the Qun, a burial is just to take your tool and to bring it home. So even the Talvashot, who are people outside of the Qun, get a part of honor. Also, when the Arishok takes over the city of Kirkwall, he gets challenged by Hawk to a duel, and the Arishok decides to accept it even though he has already won the entire war for Kirkwall. He decides to battle the entire thing just for Hawk, so that they can be honorable. If he gets the Tome of Costland, he can actually decide to leave if you also hand him over Isabella. The Arishok, who has been annoyed by everyone in Kirkwall for years, decides instead of conquering the city, he can just leave. A Qunari that has been so annoyed by so many people could destroy the city and then leave, but he just decides to leave them in peace, because the killing would be unnecessary. But then you could say, aren't there anything bad about the Qun? Well, yeah. For example, there isn't really much free will under the Qun. If you want to change job because your job doesn't really fulfill you anymore, because if you do that, it's a sign of rebellion, and therefore the Ben Hasrat will try and attack you, or other ways to set you straight. You can actually go to the re-education branch of the Ben Hasrat and just tell them you want to have another profession. Sometimes they will torture you, kill you, or some other things, but other times they'll just put you on something else. Especially if you suck at your job, like no matter what. If you suck at cooking, then at one point they will just say, go to the military, something. Also, there's no private property. You cannot own things. You own your tools for your work, and you own the house that they give you, but only for as long as they decide that you should have it. Everyone gets the same things and only what they need. If you want anything more than that, they will take it from you, or worse. Also, because of this, there are no money at all. Money does not exist. Merchants exist within the Qunari, but the merchants are just people who transport wares from one end to another. They don't really have profit. They have merchants outside of the Qun, but they're more like used for spies, because the merchants will interact with other people around Thedas and they can get information about them under the guise of saying, hey, want some wares? Because merchants don't seem really that intimidating for most strangers. Also, there's no democracy at all. There's a hierarchy, the Arishok, Arigina, and Ariqun. They decide everything. What you think does not matter unless it's rebellion. In that case, you die, or get other ways set straight. Also, sexism is widespread. The Qunari doesn't necessarily think that a woman is less worth than a man, but they do think that only males are good enough warriors to become warriors, and that females tend to only be good at management, or they tend to be the best ones at that. So if you are a Qunari male who is amazing at administration, you're not allowed to become an administrator. Or if you're a woman who wants to be a warrior, there is, however, the one exception, that if you have outstanding talent for something, such as if you're a female warrior who is amazing at fighting, then you are allowed to go and become a warrior, because you are the absolute exception, and they even have a smart title for that. They call it a Qun Athlok, which is basically something along the lines of born in one gender but is really another. For example, a woman who's extremely good at fighting will actually be considered a male, because only males can be good at it. This is also why Iron Bull thinks of Krem as a guy, because he is good at fighting, and therefore she is a he. He must be a he. Yeah, you get it. Racism. Even though the Qunari do have converts, people from other races who have decided to convert to the Qun, they're called Vidathari. Even though they allow that, they still have some racial tendencies towards them. For example, they tend to call outsiders Bas, which means thing. They literally call them objects. They don't even really see them as people. And then there's Cerebas, which is actually the mages, which means dangerous thing, because mages are seen as really dangerous because magic cannot be controlled according to Qunari. It can only be used for purposes such as war, which is the only way that Cerebases will actually be used. In fact, Cerebas is seen as so dangerous that they must have an Avarad, which is basically someone who controls the mage with a rod or wand of some sort, so that they can just completely shut down the mage in case something goes wrong. Such as if the Cerebas actually goes away from his group, because then they assume, okay, he's gone from his group, that means he's possessed by a demon. Therefore, he must die. You can also see this in Dragon Age 2, where you rescue one of these Qunari mages, who then spoiler alert, no matter what you choose, the Qunari mage will die. He will either commit suicide or he will be killed by his Avarad. Because according to the Qun, he must die if he has ever left his platoon. Magic is dangerous and a shame, and as a Cerebas, you will feel that. But also you can have your eyes sewn shut, or your mouth, or even cut your tongue off if that seems like a threat to them. But the people of the Qunari also pity the Cerebas, because even though they're seen as a dangerous thing, they are also pitied because they didn't necessarily choose to be mages. They were just born that way. So they actually also pitied the Cerebas and sometimes even honor them, while also thinking of them as highly dangerous. Because under the Qun, selflessness is the highest virtue of all. The Cerebas have the constant threat of being possessed by a demon, and they somehow live through it anyway. They have successfully sacrificed themselves for the Qun in service of the people, and therefore they are honored. While also at any point they can be killed for anything out of line or severely punished. So it's not the most amazing deal. So to wrap it up, basically the life under the Qun is just a very comfortable form of slavery. You can never leave, but you will be provided for. You will always have a job, you will always have food and shelter. But no one leaves without punishment. Talbot shot are still killed whenever they are spotted. So if you are poor or you are a slave who's running from his master, the Qun is the better alternative for you. You do not have anything else, but under the Qun you have something. And if you're poor or a slave, you are pretty much used to doing what everybody tells you anyway, or be bound to someone you don't want to be. So the Qun is not really that different from what you know, but you're better paid under the Qun, and also respected. That is all. Have a lovely day and see you next time.